Yuki Tsunoda's future has been discussed yet again by Honda, and it seems like the Japanese manufacturer won't be satisfied with seeing the young driver fight for scrap points and in the midfield of the grid. However, with their new partnership with Aston Martin and the complicated relationship that's going on with the second seat next to Alonso due to the nepotistic factor of Lawrence and Lance, is there any chance that we'll see Tsunoda race for a top team? And more importantly, can Honda make Aston Martin a championship contender so that they could influence the decision of who will be Alonso's teammate? It goes without saying that Honda is taking a lot of care for their drivers, and that was visible during the time when Yuki was struggling to find performance with AlphaTauri and Pierre Gasly was finishing regularly in the midfield, having won a race in 2020 as well. Regardless, that time is in the past now, and Honda is looking forward to putting Tsunoda in a top performing team. So considering their relationship with Aston Martin that is bound to begin from 2026 onwards, it's safe to assume they will apply some pressure to Lawrence Stroll in a bid that would see either Alonso or Stroll being replaced by Tsunoda. To say that the two-time world champion will be dropped is definitely a far-fetched and probably quite impossible scenario, so the focus will be put on Lance Stroll given the poor performance of the Canadian driver and the comfort zone in which he's firmly positioned himself in after his father became the owner of the team. When talking about Yuki's future in the sport, the president of Honda F1 Racing, Koji Watanabe, went on to say, even if it is after we are gone from Red Bull, we would like to keep an eye on him rising to the top teams. Tsunoda has graduated from the Honda Racing School, so it is really important that Yuki becomes a top driver in Formula One. This is a very delicate situation because, for starters, the Racing Bulls are expected to be a lot more competitive than they are right now. Yes, the P6 position in which they're currently placed is an improvement from last year when they finished P8, but the fact that Alpine hasn't scored any points and Williams is not in the picture helped them a lot, meaning that it's not based on high performance rather than a bit of lucky circumstances. Regardless, it was Tsunoda who scored all of the points for Racing Bulls, and therefore he is valued a lot more now than he was in the past when he constantly crashed the car and threw tantrums on the radio. This is helping Honda's case to promote him to a high-performing team, but there are so few places to be put, and quite frankly, if it's not for Aston, then there aren't many top teams that would be interested in having Tsunoda as their driver. Not that he's not a high-quality driver, he's shown how much he's matured, and at the age of 22, there is still a lot of room to improve. Be that as it may, he would be such a great addition to Aston Martin's quest of finishing high in the Constructors' Championship if they were to place him next to Alonso. This is a situation that the majority of the F1 world feels is pretty much impossible due to the, as I mentioned earlier, nepotistic relationship that is ruling in Aston Martin, the father-son duo of Lawrence and Lance Stroll. Lawrence has said it many times that there is not a situation in which his son won't drive in the team while he is the owner of Aston Martin. But now that we've seen a lot of different factors being involved, as well as his willingness to sell stakes of Aston Martin, the landscape for the team could change a little bit. When talking about the future of Lance Stroll, Mike Crack, the team principal of Aston Martin, went on to say, in the past couple of weeks, the news from Aston Martin has been mainly around Alonso, but we also know that Aston Martin is Lance's home. We know that, and the whole project has been around him, so we look for continuity. I have always said that is very important, so we will see in the next few weeks. But what Mike did not expect was a cryptic message from Lance Stroll, who said that his future in the sport is uncertain and that he is not 100% committed to continuing to drive in Formula One, which then again opens the opportunity for him to compete in other championships in which Aston Martin is participating, such as the World Endurance Championship. Obviously, Lance understands and knows that there is not much room to improve and make the championship winning structure around Lance Stroll, something that team principal Mike Crack is convinced will happen, or at least is being forced to say so to avoid external drama and pressure to enter the team. Right now, 2024 seems to be yet again again a one-man show, and Aston Martin will definitely have a small chance to fight for P4 in the Constructors' Championship, which would be a status quo from last year. And if you're Honda, you do not want to be at this place after winning championships from 2021 onwards. Therefore, Koji Watanabe has said loud and clear that it would be their ultimate goal to put a winning combination in Aston Martin, which is why Alonso held talks with Honda before he committed to a long-term collaboration with the Silverstone-based squad. When talking about the other seat, Watanabe said, "We had many conversations with Aston Martin regarding our partnership starting in 2026. During that time, we exchanged opinions about drivers too, and we shared an understanding between us and Aston Martin that Alonso was definitely a top-class driver. Aston Martin asked us if there would be any problems from Honda if they extended Alonso's contract, and the situation was shared at various stages. But Honda did not make any requests regarding this matter. In any case, we should naturally discuss what kind of driver lineup we need to win. The determination is there, and Honda is bringing a lot of experience and knowledge to Aston Martin just for them to satisfy with scrap points and fighting in the midfield. The key factor here is the regulation change from 2026 onwards, and with the emphasis being put on the engine as well as the battery power, Honda's chances to succeed with Aston have increased largely, especially after worries that Red Bull might drop the ball due to these regulations not fitting their strongest point of performance, which is the aerodynamics of the car. Be that as it may, Aston Martin is still not willing to give up on Lance Stroll as their second driver, and it may come to the point where the Canadian driver would just feel bored of driving and not competing for podiums or race wins and call it quits. This is something that his father would very much respect, and it was brought up as a question after his horrifying crash during qualifying last year in Singapore. So there is maybe a slight glimmer of hope that Honda could push the narrative of pairing up Tsunoda next to Alonso if the circumstances allow that. But for them to push this case and to convince Lawrence that Tsunoda would be helping them achieve the results that would pay off what he has been investing in for so long in Silverstone and the independence from Mercedes, they would likely have to see Tsunoda performing on a bit of a higher level right now, despite the struggles that have poised the Racing Bulls from the very start of the season. Although it hasn't started as they planned it, with Ricciardo saying that the goal would be to fight in the top 5 and the upper midfield part of the grid, right now he's yet to score points, while Tsunoda is the one who is keeping the team at P6, but without any signs of this becoming a P5 fight with Aston Martin or potentially even Mercedes. Furthermore, the scenario of Ricciardo being replaced by Liam Lawson and the Kiwi driver outperforming Tsunoda is still quite a realistic one, and if it turns out to be reality, then Tsunoda's case will take a massive dip and he would have to fight to survive in the current environment in which he's in. Speaking of which, it's worth mentioning that once the Honda Red Bull partnership has dropped down in the water, Tsunoda was asked as to where his loyalty lies, to which he responded that he is contractually obligated to Red Bull and he drives for their sister team AlphaTauri at that time. This is something that Helmut Marko has spoken of as well, saying that if Honda had plans to take Tsunoda with them, they would have to have talks with Red Bull first, because the Japanese driver is currently driving for them and not for Honda. With all this in mind, do you think that there is a possibility in which Honda would promote Tsunoda to a top performing team like Aston Martin is projected to be once 2026 starts? And more importantly, do you think that Tsunoda would live up to this challenge and not disappoint the Japanese manufacturer? Let us know in the comments below, give us your thoughts, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.